Hi, my name's Hagop. I'm a bass music, DJ, producer and multi-instrumentalist, releasing as Hungry Man. Originally from London, now based in Dorset. I'm also a music teacher. I teach music production, marketing and related topics privately and to college students here in Dorset. I've been in the music, live events and arts industries in a huge variety of different roles for 25 years. And in this series, Legendary Music, I'm going to cover all the releases that I think you need to know about to fully understand the UK dance music and bass music scene. Welcome to Legendary Music, and in this very first episode of this series, I'm going to talk about an album that was hugely influential to me when I was a teenager, when I was growing up, and I was just discovering electronic music. And that album is Insides by Orbital, and it was released in April of 1996. So Insides is an album that's really interesting to me in the context of dance music because it's got energetic, uplifting elements, songs and sort of bits of songs, but it's also got really dark and kind of foreboding and moody elements. It kind of straddles house and breakbeat and ambient, and different elements of different songs will sort of fit into those genres. It's not all pumping and heavy, it's actually quite dark and introspective and foreboding in places, and that's what makes it really interesting. And yeah, during the more like melancholic dark songs, you can almost imagine England's rainy weather and dark clouds that we get for a lot of the years, like really influencing the music. And then during the more uplifting songs, you can imagine the really bright sunshine, which like contrasts so much in summer with the like more wintry dark weather. So when I was 15, I used to be part of my school theatre control box crew, and I used to sneak into the theatre at lunchtime and put this album on really, really loud on the big PA speakers. And I would just lie back on the bench seats and close my eyes and let the music like transport me on this fantastic psychedelic journey. So yeah, I used to just love listening to this album at that time in my life. So for me, the standout track on this album is The Box. And what surprised me when I first tried to stream this album is that the mix of this song that I like, it's not on the official album release, it's not anywhere on any of the kind of streaming services, and it's also not on Orbital's Bandcamp. Digging into this while researching this video was interesting because I found out that there are numerous versions of this song. They've all got the same name, The Box, so the only way to tell the difference between them is the actual length of the track. So as I said, the mix I like the most is the longest one. It's about 28 minutes long, and it's on disc 2 of the expanded version of the album. So there was a 1-disc version and there was a 2-disc version. And it also was released as the single, The Box, and it was split into 4 tracks for this release, with track 1 being called The Radio Edit, track 2 and 3 Untitled, and track 4 The Vocal Reprise. These 4 tracks, they add up to 28 minutes, and it is the same sort of piece of music in its entirety as The Box that's on disc 2 of the album version, the full-length version. These track names though weren't on the single artwork, and the Radio Edit, it actually contains the darkest and most foreboding elements of the track and none of the vocals. It's almost like Orbital were kind of poking fun at the idea of having a radio edit that's supposed to be commercially successful. On the standard album version, The Box is split into 2, and those 2 tracks add up to 12.5 minutes. These are all fully instrumental. They don't include the vocals by Alison Goldfrapp and Grant Fulton, which I think really make this song unique. Also, the vocals on this song, again, they're quite menacing, they're quite dark, they're foreboding, they're almost talking about a sort of like a dystopian future or a dystopian world. And it's that contrast between like a heavy dance track that also includes these melancholic vocals that I just found really interesting, and the vocals really kind of chimed with me at the time. The male vocal and the accent in particular is really captivating. It's not a sound you often hear on a dance music track either then or now. And my favourite moment of the whole song is around 9 minutes in of the full-length version when the harpsichord comes in. And again, harpsichord on a dance track, something you hardly ever hear, but it just works so well. It's quite a dreamy track, The Box, sometimes verging on nightmarish, and it encapsulated a time in my life when I was actually a bit depressed. I was going to a boys' school, I was 14, I really wanted to be like out, going to parties with girls, and it just wasn't happening for me yet, and this song, just really kind of summed up how I felt about life at the time. So this song really is an epic journey, and I found an interview recently where Orbital were talking about the making of this album, and when they talked about the box, they were imagining it as a TV theme tune, with an instrumental version that would run at the front of the TV show, and the vocal version that would run on the credits of the TV show. So that's what was going through their mind when they were making the track. So I highly recommend you check this song out. As I said, you won't find it on the streaming official releases. I'll link to it below. It's just one of my all-time favourite dance music tracks, so much so that when I was doing a music project with Aaron Horn called Honey Weasel, we sampled it in one of our tunes. We just loved it so much. It's just an amazing one to listen to, either with your eyes closed in darkness, or if you're like on a long coach journey or a train journey when you can just look out the window and let your mind drift and let the song just sort of soundtrack the like moving images that are just going on in front of you. Another slightly strange thing is on the streaming platform release of Insides, they've included a track called The Saint as the last track. It was commissioned for the film The Saint, which was released in 1997 starring Val Kilmer, and this was the theme tune for that movie. And The Saint wasn't included in the original CD release or the original vinyl release. It was actually a single that came out a year after Insides was released. And this is another really cool track with a vintage 70s feel. It's actually a rework of the theme tune from a British TV show.
It's all very strange.
It sounds very different from the rest of the tracks on Insides because it has that 70s spy theme feel, and also it features more acoustic instruments. The B-side of the Saint single was The Sinner, which is another really cool track, sort of like a full-length edit, club edit almost, of The Saint. Bit darker in places, bit dancier. I think it's slightly faster too. The Saint single got to number 3 in the UK singles charts when it was released, which is pretty good, I think, for, again, like quite a moody instrumental dance track, albeit one that was attached to a movie release and one that would already have been familiar to some listeners who knew the original TV theme song. And I remember really enjoying that film, that Val Kilmer film, when it was released, and I didn't even know it would have the Orbital soundtrack on it.
But I think the formula is incomplete. It will take months
but
to
that
find
won't
out.
do, because now that the people are nicely beginning to freeze, Tretyak must sweep in from the wings with a miracle to save them.
How high do you want it, Mr. Tretyak?
To the top. Good morning, Yuri. Good morning.
Perhaps I can confirm the validity of this formula more quickly if I dispense with certain protocols.
So another really cool thing about this album, the very first track, The Girl with the Sun in Her Head, was made using only solar electric power. And this power came from a mobile generator that was created by Greenpeace called Cyrus. And it was parked outside the strong room where the album was produced and mixed. And the cables were passed from Cyrus in through the window, and that's how they powered all the studio equipment for the making of this song. So this truck had 40 solar panels and 4 tons worth of battery banks. It might not seem so pioneering now, but this is almost 30 years ago, and it's at a time when solar power didn't yet have any government support. Orbital have always been really keen environmental campaigners. It shines through in their music, and it's one of the reasons why I like them so much. So in terms of how the album was produced and mixed, as I said earlier, it was produced and mixed at Strong Room in Hackney, which is a really cool complex of studios, and also with a public cafe and a bar where they often have interesting music events and kind of music networking events and panel discussions and that kind of thing. In a Music Radar article, Paul Hartnell from Orbital has listed the equipment they used on Insides, which included an Emax Emulator 3, a Roland 909, Roland 808, Roland R8 and R70 drum machines, with live drumming that was sampled from David Gray's drummer Craig McClune. Other synths used include the Roland SH101, Roland SH09, the Oberheim Expander, Roland's Jupiter 8, Korg ARP2 600, and a Roland System 100. A lot of these synths are now pretty rare, and some of them are extremely valuable.
Yeah, it's quite smooth if you want it to be.
Insides was a studio album, and it was mixed live. which means it wasn't recorded in multi-tracks and then mixed down later, which is how most albums these days are produced and then mixed. All the MIDI parts would have been either programmed into sequences, so all the parts for the synthesizers and the samplers would have either been programmed into hardware MIDI sequences, some of them might have been played live, and then everyone that was in the studio at the time would have had their hands on some faders on the mixer, or maybe some controls on the effects, or maybe at one point in the track they're on the mixer and they move to the controls when they're sort of needed. And you would basically press play on the sequencers then trigger all the hardware, the audio from the hardware flows into the mixer, the people in the studio are controlling things live, putting in fades, maybe pans, effects, and all of that was recorded as a stereo track onto tape. And that stereo track was the final output of the track, song, before it was then sent to mastering to then get either pressed on vinyl or put on the CD. So I'm not going to talk about any other standout tracks or I'll be here all day. It's just an amazing album inside. It really hangs together as a body of work, but also each track is so unique and distinctive, it has a different style. So I really urge you to listen to it, to get to know it, to give it a few listens, and I hope you end up appreciating it as much as I do. So check out Insides by Orbital, who are one of my favourite electronic acts, really pioneers of dance music from within the British scene. If you want some of their live sets, they've played at Glastonbury numerous times over the years. There are some live sets on YouTube from Glastonbury with really good quality audio. I know Michael Eavis is a big fan of theirs, so yeah, go check them out online. So if you like this video, please share it, please like, please subscribe, follow me on my socials, and I'll be making more just like this. Thanks a lot.